Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about that feeling. You know the one you get from an amazing movie, a beautiful song, or a poem that just hits you right in the chest. We're going to look at the ancient science behind it, really, the blueprint for aesthetic emotion itself.
So, let's start with something I'm sure we've all felt. You walk out of a movie, or maybe you finish a book, and that feeling just lingers. It's powerful, right? It almost feels like magic. But what if it's not magic at all? What if it's actually a carefully constructed science?
You know, for over 2,000 years, thinkers in India were obsessed with this question. They developed this whole sophisticated field called Kavyashastra, which literally means the science of poetry, to figure out systematically what gives a piece of art its soul.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to look at what they considered the soul of a story. Then we'll get into the actual architecture of feeling, a literal recipe for emotion, the 9 essential flavors of art, and finally, the psychological trick that makes it all so enjoyable.
First things first, the soul of a story. To really get what these ancient thinkers were talking about, you have to understand this one core idea, the separation of the body of art from its spirit.
So they looked at a work of art like it was a living being. It has a body? That's the physical stuff. The words on the page, the grammar, the literal plot. Think of it as the raw marble a sculptor uses. But then, there's the soul, or the atma. That is the experience it creates in you. It's the feeling, the suggestion, the unique style. It's the expression on the statue's face that actually makes you feel something.
And listen, this debate over what the real soul of art was, it was a big deal. It wasn't settled overnight. It sparked 6 major schools of thought, and each one argued for something different. Was it the beautiful language, the jewelry, or the specific style? But out of all that debate, one idea started to rise above all the others.
And that brings us right into the heart of this whole thing, the architecture of feeling. This is where we meet the single most influential, most important concept in all of Indian aesthetics, a little thing called rasa. So what on earth is rasa? Well, the word literally means juice or flavor, and that's the perfect way to think about it. Imagine biting into a perfectly ripe piece of fruit. You can describe its color and its shape, that's the body, but the rasa is that undeniable, sweet, delicious taste you experience. In art, rasa is exactly that, the emotional flavor an audience gets to taste. It's pure aesthetic pleasure. And this quote just nails it. The scholar Vishwanatha didn't just say rasa was a part of poetry. Nope, he went all in. He basically said that poetry is, by definition, a sentence whose very soul is made of this emotional flavor. Without rasa, all you've got are empty words. Now here's where it gets really cool. The sage who first wrote all this down, a guy named Bharata Muni, he didn't just define rasa and call it a day. In his incredible work, the Natyashastra, he gave us a literal, step-by-step recipe to create it. He called it the Rasa Sutra, and you can think of it like a 4-ingredient recipe for cooking up a specific emotion in your audience. It shows exactly how an aesthetic feeling is produced from a precise combination of causes, reactions, fleeting emotions, and even involuntary physical responses. Okay, let's break these down real quick. Vibhava is the trigger, the cause, so the hero, the heroine, the romantic moonlit garden. Anubhava is the visible result of that cause, the blushing, the trembling, the tears. Sanchari bhava are like these little waves of secondary emotion, a flicker of anxiety in a love scene, for instance. And finally, you've got sattvika bhava, the stuff you just can't fake. We're talking goosebumps, your voice cracking. It's an unbelievably detailed system.
So, if that's the recipe, what are the actual flavors an artist can cook up for us to taste? Well, that brings us to the artist's emotional palette.
This system identifies 9 main emotional flavors, known as the Navarasa. You've got everything from Sringara, the flavor of love, often called the king of rasas, to Hasya for comedy, Karuna for sadness, and Veera for heroism. These are the fundamental aesthetic experiences that a great artist learns to master.
But okay, how does a true master evoke these flavors? It's not enough to just show someone being sad on screen. No, the real artistry, that lies in suggestion. It's a powerful technique that is absolutely key to creating rasa.
Let's take a super simple sentence. The sun has set. Literally, it just tells you the time of day. It's a fact. That's it. Nothing very exciting there. But put that line in a story. What else could it mean? What's the hidden message? The echo between the lines? Is it a lover's signal? A spy's code? Is it a metaphor for an empire falling? What is really being said here? Well, that hidden echo, that's called Dhvani. It's the suggested meaning that resonates way beyond the literal words. So the sun has set might really mean it's time for us to meet in secret, or maybe even our time is running out. The real aesthetic punch comes not from what's said, but from what's been skillfully implied.
Okay, this all leads to a really important question. If art gives us the flavor of sadness or fear or anger, why in the world do we enjoy it? How can we watch a heart-wrenching tragedy and walk away calling it a beautiful experience? The answer is something we can think of as a magic art filter.
The actual term for it is a brilliant concept called Sadakari Karana, and what it basically means is universalization. It acts like this amazing psychological filter between the story and our own personal, messy emotions.
So here's how it works. A character's very specific problem, let's say Romeo losing Juliet, gets transformed into a universal feeling of loss that anyone can understand. Our personal ego just kind of fades into the background. We're not worried about our relationships, and that allows us to experience the pure, unadulterated flavor of that emotion from a safe, aesthetic distance. It's not personal pain. It's a state of aesthetic bliss.
So, you see, the ultimate goal of this entire system, from the recipe of Rasa to the suggestion of Dhvani, is to create this perfect, unbreakable union. The great poet Kalidasa put it so beautifully, comparing it to the way a word and its meaning are totally, completely bound together as one.
Look, this isn't just some dusty, ancient theory. It's a practical toolkit. It gives us a whole new vocabulary to understand our own experiences with art. So the next time you feel that powerful, lingering emotion after a great story, you can stop and ask yourself, what flavor, what rasa am I truly tasting right now?